So tonight we've got a guest speaker. Stephen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm going to share a screen. Do a little bit about myself. And by all means, please feel free to interrupt. Either raise hands if I'm missing that. Also, unmute and talk and say hey. So I would say I'm a local, but local is relative. I'm actually down in Ithaca. So I do SQL Server development, and I pop up to Syracuse, or at least I used to do it a lot more often pre-COVID, a little less so now, but I'm hoping to be able to pop back up at the different tech meetups in the near future again, as we start to be back in person a bit more. So a little bit about myself. I have my undergrad and my master's in business. I've been doing software development for the last 23 years. The last 13 has been as an independent software developer, and doing technology for over 30 years. I was doing hardware and tech support before that. And important in kind of this talk is that I've moved 3 times. And so over a time period, that makes a big difference on career trajectory and choices. And I've been married for 20 years and have 2 kids. Also, 2 really important things indirectly related to how my career has been on how my choices have gone. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about my journey through software development from when I graduated from college, and hopefully can share a little bit specifically about how networking has worked for me. Oftentimes people talk about you should network and what does this mean and how does this, and I wanted to kind of show how it's related to what's happened to myself in the field of software development. Also showing a bit of how things have changed over time. Like I've been doing this a while, but it's been different as things change. What I've been doing in software development has changed and will continue to change. And then finally, like I still have questions for myself. Like even though I've been doing this a whole long time, I'm not really sure necessarily what's next for myself and career-wise. So it's definitely something I need to think about. And then we'll go to questions and answers. I've got a lot of background in a lot of different places. It may have been mentioned. I do freelance software development, database work now, but I'm happy to answer lots of random questions about like my general freelance work, like whether it's from taxes and client acquisition to database stuff. Max knows I have a lot of hackathon experience from Hack Upstate when we were doing hackathons. I've got a couple startups under my belt, and pretty much whatever you have questions about, I'm happy to try to answer. So before I get started, any questions, anything you want me to focus on in particular, or? Well, then we'll go. So the first 10 years, so I kind of think of my development and software development as a 10-year time chunks. When I first graduated in 1999 out of undergrad, with a business degree, I was just married and got a job as a government contractor doing software development. Had no real official training in software development before then. And it was in web dev, Cold Fusion, and database work at the time. So I was doing something completely new. And it wasn't until much later on where I switched over specifically to just database development. So I started as a government contractor for about 9 months, a year. And then I switched over to a consulting company and that I did a lot of different projects for a lot of different companies. This was a .com phase of the world. And so everybody wanted a website or an app to do something. Well, it wasn't apps then, but it was any kind of web development. And so I worked at a company that did all that outsourcing. I was there for a few years and then went over to a product company called Nexus Systems. So instead of focusing on lots of different smaller projects, it was one company with one product, a SaaS-based accounting one. After a few years, I went on to another online company for Bid for Assets, an auction company, and then on to CoStar. And so my progression went from web dev to DB to then I kind of focused in on something I was more interested, more on the database development, and continue to pursue that. So I know that you're learning a lot of different pieces for the web stack. You'll probably find that some areas interest you more than others. You know, a lot of people love you saying they want full stack developers, but oftentimes there's so much technology to focus on. You really eventually kind of get to a niche of saying, I might do a lot of different things, but there's a couple things I'm really good at and very interested in. And networking wise, so when I first got out of school, my first job actually came from a reference, Jeffrey, who I was in college with, had it in a class, but we weren't really that much, we weren't friends. It was just, oh, you're moving to the DC area? Yeah, I'm just got a job somewhere. Why don't you interview there? So I interviewed and got the job there. And then not too long after I was there, he bailed, but then he also got me the reference to my next company I worked with. I was there for a few years and then found my way to a new company. But from that company, I then recruited a couple of friends from the past company. So my network with these past companies were really tied to these people. And then again, it didn't take much. I got recruited over to these other companies from my friend Gotti, pulled me over. And then eventually I went off to do CoStar on my own. Now, that was the first 10 years. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also then recruited back. So you can see this connection between people that I've worked with and continuing both for hiring from somewhere else and getting hired. And so that community of who you're working with, I think really is helpful to draw on both who you know you want to work with and who can also recruit you for the next job. So the cohort you're with is an extremely powerful group of people for your future career. So the next chunk of 10 years was kind of capped with me moving to Erie, Pennsylvania. My spouse got a job teaching, and so we left DC area, and it was a big shift because essentially it forced me into a consultant role. Before I was an employee, I was getting all my benefits and everything was standard, health insurance, 401k, all that. And then we left 2008. They weren't so remote friendly. And so at that point, I got cut and I couldn't find the kind of work that I was looking for there. So I was kind of forced into remote consultancy. But again, back to the network component, I was really fortunate that my past connection, I was able to reach out and was able to get a contracting gig through them. And again, we moved again to Ithaca, and then through more consulting through my past working, I actually am now consulting with Bid for Assets, a place where I was an employee at, had left for several years, but then came back. And again, this continues on of the last gig that I've done with consulting, and I'm still working with several of these companies, was a referral from past coworker I've worked with. And I can say with confidence, like these individuals I've worked with in the past, I would reach out to both looking to recruit them again, and also if they had work, I'd hope that they reach out to me. So it's a really just important dynamic to think of who you're working with and how can you work with those individuals. There's a lot of talk about not so much company loyalty anymore, but definitely to working with people like, you know, you have coworkers you work with that you really enjoy and you want to continue working with them. It just might not happen to be at the same company you're all at that time. So now I'm here, I'm still a consultant, but you know, things change in your life. My kids are getting to the phase where they were young before. And I was able to get benefits through my wife, but the questions now is, what about the next 10 years? Maybe I need to go back to a regular employee gig for health insurance and benefits, because that is a really big driver for many people for employment. And in the consulting side too, of saying, hey, maybe I become an employee and maybe I do a little consulting aside, or maybe none at all. Also, kids going to college and moving again, where does that leave me? What options? Obviously, when I first moved to Ithaca and even Erie, remote jobs were there, but by no means the norm. Things have drastically changed. And so now if I'm looking for a new opportunity, maybe I'm saying, I want to be remote, and also know that if I move again, that's a big factor, saying that's okay. Will my company support that, or where the company I'm looking for be okay with that? But a lot of these brought up questions for myself, and also that I think are really important as you're looking to go on your own in the software development in the field, of whether you're a freelancer or employee, small, medium, large type company who you're looking for, and then an agency, which would be like a company that works on multiple clients and contracts or a product. And I have, everyone's different and their needs are going to be different, but I do think when you're first starting out, I feel like being an employee is significantly helpful as you gain and learn a lot more in your field that you're moving into. There's definitely a huge learning ramp up that happens in the first few years. And that's also why I think that a medium-sized company is probably an ideal place if that, and I do mean medium of saying like not just a couple employees. So it could be anywhere from like 15 to a couple hundred, because I find that you learn so much from the people around you. And so being able to have enough people around you to learn from is kind of a critical component for saying, I'm launching into this career and I need people to help me. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and hopefully I can answer a lot of questions from those people as well. And finally, well, agency and product, I mean, I personally love working on a product. When you're working at a place that does contract work, you get exposed to a lot of different projects. So there's an opportunity at an agency who's saying, hey, maybe I'll work on a shopping cart, maybe I'll work on a Web3 project, maybe I'll work on complete data thing, maybe it'll be an app, maybe it'll be a web interface. There's so many different opportunities there. And so you get a lot of exposure. It's a great way to learn and pick up on a lot of different pieces when you first start out. So that's pretty much been my journey through development as an employee in software development, moving on. Towards the latter half of my consulting, I've actually started up a couple companies that have since no longer existed. But I find that like I didn't have the space as a worker, and also necessarily the mental space. I wasn't personally ready for that until I was further along in my field. Clearly that's not the same for everyone. But I think knowing that you're in the right space and time for yourself is a really important thing when it goes on the entrepreneurial side, whether that's experience or whether that's family home life. It's a big piece that goes into it. There's a lot more instability that comes with that. You know, there's definitely higher risk, but also potentially higher reward. So now that I've given you my mini life story, I'm more than happy to answer questions about freelancing and pretty much anything else having to do with software development, whether locally or remote. My clients are in the DC area. One was based in Arizona, so it's kind of all over the place. Definitely US centric though.
If you guys have questions about freelancing after graduation, about doing contract work, or about someone wanting a website and coming to you and saying, hey, I would like to pay you for a website, this is the time to ask the kinds of questions, among anything else on this side.
So did you do work for a startup that was your own, or was that for another company?
So the startup was for my own. So I started up an app-based company called Pick to Pay. That was a app that did credit card rewards. We found that it was people used it, but turned out to be not profitable. So the difference between someone likes something versus can I actually pay my bills with this were very, very different. And while we continued on, we found that we didn't have enough runway, and there was 3 of us. We were all working full-time jobs, and they were just not generating enough revenue for us to be able to say, cool, we can spend more time on this and leave another job. So people seemed to like it. It was getting good traffic, but not enough usage. And the second startup was also the same. It was 2 other people, so 3 co-founders. But again, it was a in-class polling app. So it was doing very much like the clickers or but again, it was a matter of enough revenue to match. So it's definitely one of those of you can build some software and even get a few people to buy it. But if it's making you $100, $200 a month, you're like, that's cool. But it's by no means, especially if you have multiple founders, like this is super, it's still hobby when it comes to it's not scaling yet. And we hadn't found a way.
Okay, what do you think made a difference with scaling it?
So I think we needed a product market fit that we had not done enough and had not found in a time before we said, I don't want to do this anymore. Because we could have continued to iterate and change and figured out like, what are people willing to pay for? Where can we drive revenue? But there was a burnout factor for both those, for like, how long's the runway and how long do we all mentally have engagement with this? And the both were about between 2 and 3 years of total time that was done, where we started it, we started getting clients, or for the app, it was deploying it and then getting app start and stuff like that. But then after a while, it's like, how many iterations before he's like, we could keep going, but we were tired.
Thank you.
Sure. Great questions.
Shantina, go ahead.
You mentioned previously that when you first got into the tech side, that you hadn't really done software development. Did you find that you did a lot of self-taught things? Did you learn on a job? Did you have a mentor, or how did that go for you?
So I originally started out at home doing a lot of things where I was introduced because my father was early in tech. And so I kind of got to piggyback from him on the hardware side, which led to a little bit of programming, but I had occasional like classes in high school in Visual Basic and occasional projects in college. So many of those may have been college, but there wasn't so much a mentor on the software side. I was very much split on whether I was going to go into hardware or software when I left college. Like I had not said, I'm going to go be a software developer. I was like, I like tech and let me see if I can get a job. So it was really kind of accidental on which direction I went. I'm very happy I did. Looking back on, I'm like, this is great. This is definitely a more creative place for me to be. Like you can only build a server so many creative ways based on now. It needs to be done. It's good work, but I so much more enjoy the software development side. And I learned, I think, the most from my coworkers. So we usually got tossed into a project and either we were jumping back and forth between saying, I don't know how to do this, and we turn and either one of us would figure it out and go back and forth. And it was really that coworker experience that I thought was extremely helpful, less so than saying a senior developers like, here, let me mentor you on your way. At the time, like, again, you could kind of equate it similar to the Web3, where we were the .com. There was not several years of people experience to look to like, how do I do this? That wasn't around. So there was a lot of people learning all at the same time, doing a lot of bad things all at the same time. So there's a lot of learning. but there's definitely an enjoyment working with colleagues to be able to bounce ideas off of and figure things out that I thought helped push me the best when it came to learning how to get code and code better. Just like, is this a good idea? And we were pretty frank and blunt with each other. I'm like, that's horrible. And then we go back and forth, but that was a great way to learn. It's like knowing like, nope, this code's crap. Okay, let's fix it. Okay, let's fix it again. And being able to have that repertoire with someone you work with where you trust them as an individual, but can treat like, hey, whatever we're trying to build, we're going to make it the best we can. But oftentimes it is also, I'm going to build the best we can, but it still needs to go. And if it's a little sloppy under the hood, that's life. So there's many times where you see code and you're like, who did this and why? You're like, because someone said it was done, it didn't do it well enough. We're like, it's out the door, we're done.
Thank you so much. And if nobody else has a question, I have another question.
Go for it.
Thank you. When you started contracting yourself out and freelancing and such, was it your business background that helped you structure how to go about that in your contracts? Or did you also bounce off your friends or things there as well? Did you get a lawyer? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so I probably did it all wrong. So I didn't talk to a lawyer. I didn't really talk. So my original contract came from a friend. And so there's a lot of trust, and she's like, I was like, I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. Like, it's like, I'm going to do the work. You're reaching out to me. And so having that relationship ahead of time made it easy. I function as a sole proprietor. I have insurance for my business, but for tax purposes, I'm a sole prop. And so I've kept it that way. I've gone back and forth many times on incorporating to LLC. There's super pros and cons on that. But I also, the type of consulting I do typically are with clients that I keep long-term. Like, I am not looking to pick up, like someone says, hey, I need a website. I'm like, I'm looking to like work with you for 10 to 20 hours a week indefinitely. Like, that's the kind of, because that's the kind of relationship where you're like, I'm here for you. It's going to keep going. They're going to keep paying me and I'm going to keep working. And that's worked out extremely well for me because it's not you didn't deliver what you said. You didn't do the one thing, because those contracts that are like small definitive hours or tight dollar amounts get really sticky because people often don't know what they want. People's budgets aren't really great. And then they figure it out too late. And so I found that kind of contract has been the best for me to work with. I've done a couple that have been small, but doing a 10-hour contract is really cost ineffective when you're trying to recruit a customer and make that relationship. And then you're like, cool, I made like $1,000. You're like, that's fantastic. But you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go do this again for another client for $1,000. Like, it is that process of recruiting a client and maintaining that relationship is so expensive as a freelancer that you don't get paid for. You're like, I don't want to do that. Like, I would love to get, like, I'll get another client, but it's going to be like, I'm looking for a client that needs ongoing work. And for a lot of clients are like, I try to put myself in the overflow place where they may have a couple of employees, but you're like, well, we need more, but we don't necessarily want to hire one, but we need flexibility. So you're like, I can be your flexibility. I can be some hours, a lot of hours, or shrink back down to no hours. You don't have to pay when I'm not here, but if you need more work or you need someone to work the weekend, like, I get paid to work the weekend and I'm totally cool with it. And usually it works in a good capacity where there's a core group of employees, but they want some flexibility. We're like, hey, we got this extra thing we don't have time for. Like, well, just give it to Shaffer. Maybe he'll do it and then come back to us. So that's how I've structured my contracts. I think in that way, they need to be large enough companies that they need that kind of work, but not so large of a company that they'll just like, we can't handle that odd situation because it doesn't fit into Oracle and we don't know how to put a contract together. Like, that's large companies tend to like, this is not how we do business, so we don't know how to do it. Like it's very tough. So that middle-sized company of saying, we're growing, we need people, we're looking to hire, but hey, we'll take a few extra consultants on the side. Those seem to work really well for the ongoing freelance work.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Doug, go ahead.
So I was wondering, I forget the beginning of your timeline there, but how long were you working at a business before you embarked on freelance? And did you start out, was your first freelance work the same type of work you had been doing at the company you were working for? And when you started freelancing, were there, like, as far as building up your skill set, how long did you do that before you went on your own? And was there stuff that you, was there anything you were missing when you started freelancing, skills wise?
Yeah, I didn't start freelancing till about 10 years afterwards. And I kept doing exactly what I was doing before. Like I do work with SQL Server. And so I was doing database creation and store procs and tuning and things like that. And so I didn't change, like my day-to-day job didn't really change much when it came to like, I'm an employee, to being like, oh, look, now I'm a contractor. I mean, you really could, like, many people may or may not know, depending on how they knew my business arrangement, is like, oh, I didn't know what he was, because oftentimes if you're all remote, you don't know they're around all the time. But it was about 10 years. I think the biggest change for me was dealing with billing, because that was a weird one. All of a sudden you're like, I'm sending you an invoice now and I got to make sure I get paid. And so you're dealing with different kind of HR type things. The contract stuffs have never been a horrible thing for me to deal with, mostly because the relationships, like couldn't tell you what the contracts say most of the time. They're all boilerplate anyway. And if you get to that point, it's really a bad situation anyway. If you're looking to the contract to see, like, that's not a good place to be. The other piece that I think was weird was, now that you're a contractor, you're setting your rates versus getting a raise. I think that the biggest mental shift of saying like, okay, so what is your rate? And then how long? And if you're ongoing with somebody, it's like, let's say I'm going to set my rate at $75 an hour. You're like, for how long? And how long does that last for? And I mean, some contracts that I've worked with before, they've specifically end after your time and they need a new statement of work and sign up, and then we discuss. But others, they're just ongoing. Like, I haven't signed one of the company bid for assets. I haven't signed a new piece of contract paper in like 7 years. And so how do I negotiate telling them what my new rate is and worrying about what they'll say? Because it's like, as an employee, it's very backwards to this. It's like, you go in, you're like, I'm going to ask, and say, hey, we're going to give you a raise, or you might ask, but it's like, this is what we're going to do. As a contractor, it's totally 180 on saying, here's my rate. And then like maybe a couple of years later, I was like, oh, my rate's going to go to this. And I got to wonder, okay, are they going to say no? Then what do I say? Like, I can say, okay, I got to cut my hours. Or okay, I mean, it's a very different mental position when you're on as a freelancer of saying, what's my rate? Because you can always say, sure, they can't do it. And be like, okay, I'll go with my old rate. Or not, and how much do you change and how often do you change? It's a very big mental shift, especially when you have markets like right now, or even just not too long ago, where things were jumping in price. So how often do you do that? How does that affect your relationship with the employer? So those are the pieces that I think my business background helped me, but without doing it the first time is really the first time you do it, you're like, here, you gotta start and go from there.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Got another question.
Go for it, Larry.
So you said sometimes you look at how long you're going to work with the client. So have you ever said, okay, well, for the first 12 months, say it's a 2-year contract, for the first 12 months, it's $100 an hour. After that, I'll drop down to 75, or when it changes, it always goes up.
Always goes up.
All right.
So, and normally I've been in contracts where it's like you set a rate and then usually a year is about the time where it's like, cool, we're up to a year, here's a new rate or not. And you definitely want to give lead time both for them and yourself. So maybe it's like, here's the rate, it changes. So maybe I say in October, January, my rate's going to change, goes up by $5, it goes up by $2.50 an hour. Here, let me know if there's an issue. And that's generally how I have staged it. Most contracts I've dealt with, they don't have it scaling of rate. And the rates, I wish it could be a better formula, but it is truly plucked from the sky. There's a market rate, but what does that mean? How many years experience? Which market am I in? I mean, I don't even know which market I'm in. I live in Ithaca. I'm talking to people in Syracuse, one of my clients in DC, one was in Arizona. I mean, I'm competing since I'm remote with other people all around the world, but not really. It's so weird. So the rate is pretty much what you can get away with. And that's what they're willing to pay. You don't want it being excessive means there's absolutely a chance it'd be like, we found someone cheaper, half your price. So you could be like, oh, client's gone. And same goes with like asking for a raise, whatnot. So there is a justification for that value. But it truly is like wacky up in the air. And you could be charging $50 an hour and hear about someone else charging $200 an hour. And you're like, and their skill set's the same as yours. Like, how can I get that client? And so it's very tough. To me, it's one of those where when you have enough work, you can start raising your rates. So if somebody walks away, you're like, okay, I'm gonna just like, that's how I found that works the best on how you can get to a rate that works for you. Which is also why I'm a big fan of having about 2 or 3 clients, because when one client says, I'm done, or you want to walk away from a client, you can. It's a really tough place to be where you've got to juggle all 3 and you got to make sure you've got it right enough hours for each one. But when it comes to risk mitigation, you're like, someone drops down, you can like, I'm going to scale up the other person. And if everyone's pretty flexible, then it works really well. But again, that first client, you're like, I need money and I need a job. And then the second client, I try to get better, and then I can raise the rates on the first client. And so it's really, and you don't have to necessarily have that communication like, oh yeah, my other clients does this or that. And you wouldn't necessarily want to tell them. You're like, no, that's kind of private information. But I think it's good for you to be in that bargaining position to say, here's my new rate. And if they say no, you're like, okay, well then at the end of the year, I'm either gonna have to drop the hours down or something else. And then you go look for another client. Because if you have 2 other clients, you're like, cool, I'll take a little break and find my 3rd client. And it puts you in that better position of bargaining. Again, everything being reasonable on what you think you can command for a rate, and how you think their business is. I mean, maybe you like working with them, so you're willing to do it. Maybe it's easy, and so you're willing to take a little less money because you're like, this is easy work, and I will just take this money and be happy, and I don't want to rock that boat. Or maybe you're like, I don't like this client, and so you're getting a $20 an hour raise because either you're going to be here and you're going to pay me, or go away. And I've got 2 other clients that I'd rather work. But these are the choices you need to make when it's like, and I'd absolutely raised higher rates on clients, which I was not happy with because they're a pain in the butt. And then you have to eventually figure out, how do you fire a client if you like, I just don't want to work here anymore. Which I recently got rid of one of mine because I just really did not enjoy it. And COVID had made a lot of work came in. And so there's a lot to do. And at some point you're like, there's too many hours, too many things. Who do I choose to get rid of? You get rid of the client you like the least. I mean, it just, so, but these kind of questions are like how you have to choose are definitely thrown in where as an employee, you're like, I'm working, I can get an annual review and maybe I can ask for a raise and things like that, but it's a very different mental model than freelancing. And I think that was the biggest change. But again, I think that it worked well for me at that time. A, I didn't have much of a choice, and B, I had a lot more experience I can lean on. So when someone say, hey, I need a consultant that does database work, I can say, here's my 10 years of it. It's a lot harder to say, hey, I'm doing web dev consulting. You're like, show me your work. You're like, I don't have that much to show. So it makes it a lot harder to go over that barrier to get that first client. By no means impossible. And the connections you have can make it happen, but it definitely makes it harder.
And that's something to consider too, for when you're setting your rate of, okay, well, I may charge $200 an hour, but I, as a senior developer, can get the job done in an hour. You may be charging $50 an hour, but it's going to take you 4 hours to get the same job done, right? And so that's also something to consider. And hourly is, while it is a industry standard to charge hourly, a lot of smaller businesses, I'm talking small businesses, you know, coffee shops and local businesses and stuff like that, will also be more comfortable charging a flat rate for a project.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I find with smaller clients, again, doesn't work for, you know, corporations or stuff like that, but you know, you're just as nervous on figuring out the pricing as they are nervous about how much they need to pay for this. And so sometimes you can just be honest with them and say, hey, what's your budget, right? And once you know what the budget is for a project, you can either say, all right, let's work that back out to an hourly rate, or, okay, you got this big idea, but it's not your MVP. Can we start pulling out some of those features to get you closer to that budget? But sometimes starting at a project-based pricing, at least for your first couple projects, is better for you, because now you're not worried about running over and having to charge the client additional money, because you're still making the mistakes that, you know, every developer has to go through as someone entering the market.
Yeah, it definitely is a way to say, how do I leverage getting a client and customer saying, I may end up being paid $20 an hour, but I can then say, cool, I did this project and I can put this on as part of my portfolio, and I made money, and I've got something else to go on. And then I can know that the next project I've got a bid better at. And so that's like, estimating work and time load is like in an impossible, tricky business in our field. You know, the general rule of like, whatever you think it is, multiply by 3, and that's your hours. It's just very tough. So, but I agree with Max on the small, you can, here's what I think we can do for that. Because into it versus saying, here's my hour, like, you're not necessarily gonna tell them the hours, you're saying, you know what I'm gonna do.
Sorry, you broke up there a little bit.
Yeah, I saw a connection. So, so other questions before I lose my internet again and the storms roll through here.
I hope you're far enough south, because I've got windows open at home.
I was gonna say, it's getting dark out here, so we'll see what happens.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
I think you touched on this, but when you're charging hourly and the client says, okay, what's the whole project going to cost? Like, how is it just from experience of doing the projects that you can say this is going to take 10 hours, this part's going to take 20, and you can come up with a number?
Yeah, sadly, it really, that the experience dictates. Like, so someone said, hey, we need to rewrite these 10 things. I'd look at them. You actually spend so much time estimating. If, like, you could say, because you have to essentially, you can either guess wildly and be wrong, or spend a couple hours going through, reviewing, and figuring out, like, okay, I see what's there. That's going to take an hour, 2 hours, hour, I'm guessing. And then I think 15 hours, and then I know I'm wrong, so 30. It really is a calculation where you go through and try to do it. And it is a really tough process, because it is not, you don't know what, it's like kind of like with construction. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to open up the wall and see what's inside. You're like, I'm going to start with this code, but I'm like, oh, I didn't realize all these other things were broken here too, that it's dependent upon, but I gave a fixed price. So for projects, again, this is why I really personally love the ongoing. It's like, I'm happy to work. Like, you can have me up to 20 hours a week, and I will keep on working for you. And if someone to say, how long do you think? It's like, I think that'll probably take about 4 or 5 hours to take care of. And, but it's not, I'm not, with my clients, I'm not bound to say, here's 4 hours, it's $100 an hour, it's $400. We sign a contract, I do it, and then return it. I mean, to me, those are too small because A, you're going to screw up because it's like, oh, crud, it actually took 8 or 10 hours. And, or did they change their mind? Like, that's not really what I wanted. So it gets really complicated when it gets small. The longer the duration, the more the ongoing position you could be in, the better you are to say, I'm going to estimate it, but we'll keep working on this and iterating to get what you want to get.
I will say the most important thing that I've learned from doing any type of contract work is always over communicate. Because as a junior developer, you're going to get behind on something, you're going to beat yourself up for underestimating it, then you're going to miss a deadline, the client's not on you yet, but now you're worried, you're stressing yourself out because you're behind on the deadline. Now you're so stressed out that you can't get the work done, and now you're just snowballing in a really bad way, right? So it's just so important. And I've seen it so many times of like, just communicate with the client, right? There's no shame in going back to them and saying, hey, this is taking longer than I anticipated, and give them that insight, right? Tell them why it's taking them longer, because most clients, while they don't want to learn everything that you know how to do, they will appreciate insights into what you are doing. So just sharing with them, hey, I underestimated, turns out that blue button took a lot longer to make blue because it was in 14 other places around the site, or whatever it is. Just regularly communicate with that client. And the other thing is, ask the client very early on in the contract, how often do you want communication? Because I've had some clients who are like, I want to check in every day. If I'm paying you, I want a 30-minute update every day. And I've had some clients be like, come back to me when it's done. And that's a little like, even I'm not comfortable with that. And I go to them and I go, all right, can I get a weekly meeting on your calendar, or a monthly meeting at least? Because there's so much that can go off the rails, and then you give yourself enough rope to hang yourself, right? So I don't necessarily put that into the contract, but when I'm getting started with a new client, those are all things that I try and set up very early on, so that when things do go wrong, we've got those communication and meetings already set up that we can reach out.
Christy, did you have a question?
This,
No, you're good. Go ahead.
okay, wait a minute. My question is, for like a,
Mute your computer.
okay, wait a minute.
You're fine. And the computer mute.
No? Where's your?
Mute there.
Wait, I don't see it. I do. Just talk loud.
There you go.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so what if you did a project for like a non-for-profit or like a 503c? Could you claim that as charitable?
No, so you're still a consultant and a vendor. Now, I have not gone down the road of, when you donate things and money, you can deduct stuff. Donating your time is super weird, and I don't think you can. You'd have to check with someone, but I don't think I can't say, I'm going to go work for a nonprofit for 10 hours and write off my $150 an hour fee. I don't think you can, because I'd say, well, my fee is really $500 an hour, and I've just donated $5,000. So I don't think you can deduct it in that way. So the nonprofit's on their side, not on your side. So
You could theoretically, not a tax accountant, do not take this as advice. But if they were willing to pay that to you, and then you turned around and donated that money back to them, now you can write off the donation that you gave to them.
Okay,
But you'd have to pay taxes on that. So if they gave you $5,000, you'd be like, I need to pay my 15% plus my federal. Like you're gonna be like, I don't want to do that because you'd pay a lot of taxes. But now, not impossible, but there would definitely be tax consequences that
Yeah.
get messy. That they're like, pay you $5,000. You're like, you could donate back to them, but you'd still be taking $5,000 on the revenue. And as software developers, our costs are so small. Like you have your computer, you might have a hosted server, but like I look at my expenses as an independent, like it's great that it's all profit, but like you can't, there's nothing to deduct. Like I've got like 10 square foot of home office and a computer that I'm like, how can I upgrade this so I can write something off? There's just very little to write off when it comes to that world.
It is important though to run your business as a business, right? Just because you're self-employed does not mean, oh, I just, take this money and at the end of the year I'm done. It is very much worthwhile talking to a tax accountant. You don't have to have them file your taxes for you,
Yeah.
but talk to an accountant, go through, that withholding that you've had out of every paycheck for, whenever you've worked a full-time job. You still need to do that, except it's not called withholding anymore. It's called estimated tax payments. And then you get into, okay, well, how much of my estimated tax payments do I need to make? And there is I won't call it an art. There is a science to learning that. And once you get in the swing of running a business, that is easy, right? Or easier. But you don't want to go turn around and be making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year doing contract work and then realize that at the end of the year, oh, whoops, I haven't been making tax payments. And it turns out that I owe 30% of that to the government.
Yes,
So
you do. Yeah, the quarterlies, it's definitely one, like if you're ramping up and doing a few $1,000s of work, that's not especially if you're employed, which means you're already getting taxes taken out of your paycheck. It's not a scary place to get started. But when you start saying, I'm making 5 figures, you really should be saying, I need to be filing my quarterly taxes and giving them money every 3-4-ish months because it's weird. Because otherwise, you'll get penalized for not paying enough taxes on time. But again, it depends on where you are. If you're like jumped all in and you're like, I'm making 60 grand a year, it's like you want to talk to someone. But if you're like, I'm going to get a client and I'm going to get some work and I'm going to learn about this stuff, it's definitely not out of the question to be able to say, I don't need to do it the first year, especially since I'm paying taxes. And I can even tell my employer, take more money out of my paycheck so I don't file self-employment. I mean, I've absolutely done that where I've loaded up my tax outbound as an employee to cover some of my consulting taxes because all goes to the government. So I don't take it out there. So I don't have to do both work. But yeah, it's definitely a scale up versus you don't want to run into that. When I do anything special for my taxes, I mean, I might be an idiot, but I still file online with standard like TurboTax with both my business and stuff. And I don't do anything outside of that for taxes.
yeah, I'm in a similar situation. And it's not to say there's nothing wrong with filing your own taxes. It's just one of those things that as an individual, you are used to saying, oh, tax time is in April. I worry about my taxes in April. And that's just not a luxury you get to do when you're self-employed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Any final questions?
Oh, but thank you.
Well, what's what's the most what do you work with mostly when it comes to, because there's hundreds of apps, hundreds of different applications, right?
So I've found like in my world, I definitely found my niche when it comes to my billable work. So I use Microsoft SQL Server. I can do a whole lot of stuff, but people shouldn't pay me. And so I find that they like, to me, in my mind, like that's where I think that we're freelancing versus employee. Like I can wear lots of hats and I can offer up, like here I've done web development and I've worked on apps and done product design and I've done weird stuff. But if you're going to pay me by the hour to do stuff, like it's the thing I'm best at. And so that's where I feel like I can offer the most value, but it's the value of like, I can do SQL Server development and I can fix people's problems and diagnose things. But I also know these other things. So if I'm here to help and offer, and so I kind of can grow how I assist people, but it's got to start with like, I'm really good at this one thing. And for me, that's how I'm able to work with clients, because usually they have a demand. Like I walk in the door saying, you have a SQL Server problem. I'm here to help fix that. I can offer up other solutions, but it's also, I came to that place because I was interested in that and I liked it and enjoyed it as an employee. And so I kind of gravitated towards like, oh, I'll do that. I enjoy that. And or I'll do that. So whether it's like, maybe you're doing React work and you're like, I really like front end UI design. And someone's like, I don't care about that. And so you're like, cool, I'll keep doing that and keep doing that. And you find yourself moving more towards the UI development, or you find yourself, you're like, I like doing like microservices, and like you keep doing that. And then you find you're like, cool, I feel confident to say, hey, I can do consulting help for people having problems with microservices.
Okay.
And specifically in Node. So it's, to me, it's one of those of picking that, like, that's my tool. I could spend, there's so many, there's like you're saying, like there's an unlimited number of what I could try to look and learn and find out. And I do learn new things, but when it comes to like paying the bills, to me, it's that area. And I try to continually learn in my area and go deeper on the knowledge set, but I also, I'm getting wider on other things. But I would say to this whole cohort, like what you bring to the table before you showed up here is something you shouldn't ignore. Like, I mean, you have medical background. And so saying I'm doing software development, but I can also jump into a medical field and not have to be told what all these terms are. Like that is an extremely amazing asset that you can offer. Like I can do consulting work in the medical field with software development. Like I couldn't do that. Like I'd walk in and be like, I don't know what any of these terms mean. I have no knowledge. And so like, to me, that is the one thing that everyone in this group brings, is they bring their own personal experience, which you may not want to necessarily continue doing that, but it's definitely like, if you came from automotive industry or you came from, you're like, I have that knowledge and now I can use software development and that knowledge. And that can get, like, to me, those are great places to say, where do I want an entry-level job? Like software development and my background experience, because those years of experience go from like how much software development experience you have versus how much industry experience you have. And all of a sudden you're capitalizing on that. And whether or not that works for you on the particular niche of software, but then to me, that's why being an employee works well, because then be like, cool, you just work and learn and find out what it is you really are enjoying and focus in on that.
And this is going to sound terrible, but a lot of our students come out of the program and say, I learned more about what I don't want to do than what I want to do, right? And that's the whole point of this program, or not the whole point of the program, but that is a point of the program, is that you may go through all of this and be like, I can't believe I survived to graduation. The thing that I like doing the most was project management on my capstone, or so that week of SQL that we did, that's what I want to spend time on, or whatever it is, right? And we consider all of those successes of the program. So you may start finding clients that the really small businesses are like, I don't care what you make my website in, I need a website.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes that freedom is well, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah.
But you will find clients who are like, I don't care what you build it in, all I care about is the end product. Or you will find some clients who are like, working with a small data set, and they're like, we need someone who uses this specific tool. And at that point, when you're just getting started, you have to ask yourself, is it worth learning that tool? Because you may find that that's your niche, right? That's where your money's coming in from. But there's so many different paths that you can take outside of this. But the self-employment one should not be underestimated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. That was very, very, very informational.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll send the slide deck. I don't know if there's actually much for the value there over to you, Max, and then you can distribute it. And by all means, feel free to reach out and ask questions. I mean, this, Syracuse, this area, this is a network. I'm hoping that we get more in-person stuff going on. And I think it's an incredible, great way to continue is like meeting and finding out who needs what, whether it's like learning stuff at a hackathon or looking for businesses like, hey, we need people. There are a lot of great places. So that community and that employment opportunity. So by all means, reach out and hopefully I will see you in Syracuse sometime soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right.
I was gonna hit the leave button.
Bye.
They had like motivational speakers. And then we had a breakout room and we went into a tech. The first one was tech. So I went into that room and there was this one guy and he has like a company. I think he's affiliated with Center State and he may be pulling people from the advanced manufacturing thing. I forgot. I saw his name on his shirt. But I also met this guy from he works at Meta. And he was like one of the right. And I connected with him and I got his LinkedIn. Actually he gave me his phone and let me send myself a request on LinkedIn. He's very nice. He said he would, look into apprenticeships for me. But then there was these two guys, and I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're in film or movie.
Okay.
They went to SU, and then they were actually recording the event. They have a group. I don't know if it's called Black Hub or something. But when I told him I was doing careers in code, he knew what I was talking about. So I have worked in corporate America for the majority of my work time. I want to work by myself. Like I want to work from home. It confirmed.
You're not usually exclusive anymore. You can definitely be corporate and work from home.
Right, but I don't necessarily. I would talk to, if I had a client that I was working with, I would be prepared to talk to the client and be professional. But I just don't want to do it anymore. Like I don't want to. Like, some of the conversation and all the chatter, and I don't want to do all of that. Like, I just really don't, that's not what I want to do anymore. So I was like, I want to work from home, and I want to work maybe small company where you do have to interact and you may go into office, but I just want to keep it as simple as possible. So, and I definitely want to do full stack. They were like, I haven't touched a line of code. And I'm like, why not? Like, I don't think that I would want to not. Even though I don't understand JavaScript and some of these lines, I know how to make them work. I just don't know how to speak to them. So being able, like last night, I was on from after office hours. I didn't get off the computer until 10 o'clock. I got my portfolio working just like the blog and the Capstone. And so I'm like, I sat there and I reached out to Larry and Doug, and Larry told me one thing to do, but the dog wasn't available, but I just sat there and I kept on and I made it work. So I just feel like I can start, make something work, and then finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do. I don't want to do.
Well, and that's the beauty of full stack.
Right.
Oftentimes when you're on a full stack project and you're only the front end developer, you don't get that feeling of completion, right? You have to, you get to do your little part of it, and then you have to let go of it for other people to do the back end or the database or whatever else. And certain companies, you'll want to work for the company and they'll say, sorry, we don't hire full stack developers, or we do, but you're going to be in back end. And if you touch the front end too much, you're going to get a slap on the wrist because that's not your job. And there will be other companies like my company that only hires full stack developers, right? And even we do have one front end developer, but they're also a designer. And so they are kind of spanning another stack, right? It's not just, hey, writing the front end code. It's they get in Figma, which is Adobe's design suite, and they build out all the user interfaces, right? So there's so many different careers that you can come out of this boot camp. I wasn't kidding when I said, yeah, there are some students who are like, I figured out the 14 things I don't want to do, and it's weak numbers, and they go through and circle it all. So
they said one of the things they said was how hard. They said that I heard someone say that coding was hard, like full stack coding was hard. And I was like, well, it's not that hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's not that hard. Like, it's doable. Like, for them to,
Well, I learned it in 6 months, so.
right. Well, I know a lot more than I knew at the beginning of the 6 months. But just listening to them talk and being in a forum where everyone was talking about tech, I was like, yeah, I think I would just want to do full stack stuff.
But it's so important to put yourself in those situations, which is why we normally, cancel class for open hack, because it's so important to network, because otherwise you don't have those moments to say, well, what do I really want to be doing? Or, you could have talked to the guy at Meta and he said, oh, well, we got something in augmented reality and an apprenticeship there, and you could have gone like, whoa, right, you could have gone.
Right.
Oh.
Well, I looked into that, and as much as I love games, I like retro games more than I like current games. I got that. What is that thing called? We got Larry. I like it. It's okay, but I can play Miss Pac-Man all day. So
Well, but it exposes you to job titles that you never had, right? Or you never knew existed. And so
Right.
it is always worthwhile when you're talking to someone in networking, and if you're talking to them for a couple minutes, be like, so what do you do? And they'll tell you, oh, I'm a software developer at SU. And it's like, no, but what does that mean? What do you actually do, right?
so you have to say, what stack do you use?
What stack do you use? What project management tools do you use? What are you building? Are you building websites? Are you building web apps? Are you spending time in databases? What does your team structure look like, right? Like, all of those are interesting things for me. And you may get something out of that you aren't prepared for, or that you didn't even know was an option. So just something to consider of the importance of networking, and also the importance of Laura's whole career module, right? All of those career module homework assignments are getting you practice with networking and all of the stuff where I can't teach it in a classroom, right? And that's why those career modules are so important. So that when you are ready, when you are feeling confident enough, which, by the way, you should be doing now. You should be taking every mock interview. And I know there's been not enough availability with employers, and then there weren't enough signups, and I know that's been a whole thing, but take advantage of any mock interview that you get the chance to do, because you don't get a chance to do a mock interview. You get a chance to have an interview go bad in the real world. And that's okay, right? Because, like, everything happens, right, for a reason. It's one of those, like, hey, I had a bad interview, that's fine, whatever. But getting out there and getting interview practice is the only way you're going to get better at interviews. And so that's definitely something to consider. Any questions, any feedback on the guest speaker, any questions that popped up over the weekend?
I like that he said you can go back and use, because I did medical coding, so I know a lot of medical stuff.
Yep.
I really thought that I wanted to walk away from that, but if I can apply the two together, I will.
Yep.
Just depends on where, but I will, as long as they let me work from home.
Any other questions? Okay. So tomorrow we will have a document to share with you guys for your capstone presentations. Tomorrow is the day that you should start thinking about putting together a slide deck. We will have an example of that. Tomorrow is the day to start that, because graduation is going to come up really quick, and there are going to be bugs in your capstone, and you're going to realize the true definition of MVP for the rest of the week going in. Reminder, I am in person today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. We are off from class on Monday for Labor Day. It is required to be in person Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday and Wednesday, we will start dry runs of your capstone presentation. We will be cutting you off at 6 minutes, so you have an idea of how far you're going over. You're going to get a better feel of that. That is Tuesday and Wednesday next week. If you cannot be in person at Common Space those 2 days, please shoot me a message and we can figure out how to get you involved. Next Thursday is graduation. Similar situation. Absolutely required to be there in person unless there is some extreme reason not to be. If you guys test positive for COVID, we do not want you there on Thursday. Outside of that, being in person for graduation is a must. So if anything comes up, if anyone has problems with next Thursday, 5:30 at Lemoyne, please shoot me a message. Otherwise, graduation goes exactly the way you think it will. We introduce everyone, we thank all the teachers, we thank all the students. We will give a quick rundown of what a full stack app is so that every single student doesn't need to explain what a front end and back end and node and all of that stuff is. Then we go into presentation, 6 minutes max. If you have not started demoing at 2 minutes before the end of your presentation, so 4 minutes in, we will hold up a sign that says demo. At 6 minutes, we will hold up another sign that says 6 minutes, and at 7 minutes, we will slow clap your butts off the stage. So, not kidding, Shantina, I think you've been there, you've seen it. We will start a very awkward slow clap, and it's not fun for anyone. So, we will have more details in a document for you tomorrow, along with an example slide deck. But something to start thinking about tomorrow, something that you should have done over the long weekend, because on Tuesday you will need your slides done. You can do your slides in anything. Some people love Canva, some people do it in Google Slides, some people do it in Keynote. I don't know why you would ever want to do it in PowerPoint, but if you wanted to, you could do it in PowerPoint, just better tools. But it doesn't matter what you do it in. What you're going to do at the actual graduation is everyone is going to be in the Zoom room. You are going to present your screen like you have been all class, but you are going to stay muted with your camera off. You will use your laptop to present through the slides. Whatever program you use is completely fine. And then you will stop your screen share and walk off the stage. We normally start with a random order or an alphabetical order, and then have people cry bloody murder that they want to go first, or they want to go last, or they want to go second to last, or whatever it is. We don't care. So we will figure that out in person on Tuesday. We will get the final order together, because at the end of the day, the order does not matter to us. So we will figure all of that stuff out next week. Again, required to be in person on Tuesday and Wednesday at Common Space next week. If you cannot make it, shoot me a message and we will figure out how to get you incorporated virtually. And then Thursday in person at Lemoyne. It is a public ceremony. You are welcome to invite your friends and your family and all of that stuff. It is largely just capstone presentations, but in your head, when you're working on your slides, very, very important to think about this as presenting your journey over the last 6 months, not just presenting your app. So your capstone is the culmination of everything that you learn. And because of that, it shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes in your presentation. The other 2 or 3 minutes in your presentation should be talking about everything you learned, the journey you went through. I know Ariel would kill me for saying this, but Ariel has stand-up comedy experience and hers was funny and the audience was laughing. You do not need to take a comedy tact on this. Whatever you want to do is completely fine. Know that this is not serious. You're not raising $1 million round for your company. There is no equity. You're not selling your app to anyone. Your app is just showing everything that you've learned over this journey. And that is what graduation is all about. Smart casual dress. You do not need to show up in a suit. There are certainly no graduation gowns. I will actually for once not be in a t-shirt. Don't expect much more than a t-shirt, but it is a graduation, so feel free to wear dresses or skirts or collared shirts or whatever. You can go for a tie if you want to, but you definitely do not need to dress to the nines. Again, we'll have more details on you, but more details for you tomorrow, but any questions on anything else?
No.
Okay, it is 6:45. We are going to take break a little bit earlier, but before we do, I would like to share what we are doing for all of this week. So these add-on modules are linked in Canvas. Class is going to be a little bit different from this point forward. Next week, we're going to be doing presentation dry runs, and it's going to be completely different. But for this week, we are going to do everything async. So no one's going to be in the Zoom room. You are going to shoot me questions that you have in Slack. And you are also going to include whether you want to work one-on-one on that, or if you want the whole class to kind of benefit from it. I would encourage you to have the whole class be able to listen in, because chances are if you're having the problem, someone else may be having the problem. But when you shoot me a question, just say, hey, can we do this one-on-one, or I don't care if the class chimes in. I may have to gather some resources together, but this week is all about catch up and wrap up. So you can ask questions about your capstone. You can ask questions about any of the material in the sections below, which I'll go over in one minute. My God, I need a coffee during break. You can use this time to catch up on any homework assignments and get help anywhere you're stuck. You can ask for reviews of concepts from any week going all the way back to week 1. I will put together something quickly, and then we can either go into the one-on-one, or we can share it with the class. If you have any deploying help, if your capstone is not deployed and you need help with that, I will try to be Nathan and try and help you there. If you are behind on career modules, definitely utilize them, because I am telling you guys, you are going to wake up on Monday and not know what hit you, because you are not going to have class after graduation. Having those career modules done and having the practice and being able to utilize Laura, super, super important. And then you can also request additional topics or have resources added below. So if you're here and you're like, Max, one thing that I wanted to learn, we didn't touch on it at all, was how do you do two-way password encryption, or a broader topic. If you're like, Max, I really want to learn WordPress, that's where I think my career is headed, pretend there's nothing down there for that. I can pull together some resources, I can recommend a course, I can get some articles together, and we can get it on here. With that said, I've identified a couple modules that a lot of students go into after graduation. I have linked to a lot of free code camp on YouTube. I've linked to some free code camp certificates, and I've also linked to LinkedIn Learning. You do not have access to LinkedIn Learning unless you have an Onondaga County library card. You can go through the registration. I have all the steps here, and at some point you should swing by a library and give them your ID, and that's what will get you a permanent library card. The link to get into LinkedIn Learning is right here. If you open that link, it will take you to the Onondaga County specific login, where you can use your library card number and your PIN to get into that. With all of that said, here are the modules that I have identified. WordPress, which is a content management system. It is written in PHP. It is the most common way websites are built, especially for clients. React Native is a next step for if you want to build mobile apps. If you want to have something on the iOS or Google Play Store on Android, React Native is a great way to take your knowledge of React and pull it right into a mobile app. I've linked for database design and database SQL. The design is going to be more on the ERD side. It's going to be more on the columns. It's going to be on foreign keys and table structure. Database SQL is more focused on the actual language, right? That's the standardized or structured query language. That's some additional information there. You could also go into Mongo or NoSQL if you are interested in databases but are looking for an alternative. Quality assurance is something, a role that we've identified with the Surge apprenticeship that is in just as high demand as software developers are. So if you are interested in quality assurance, I have a link to the free code camp certification there. By no means you need to limit yourself to these resources. And if you find a resource that is particularly helpful this week, please DM it to me so I can get it added to the list. Finally, I linked to machine learning, which is TensorFlow and Python. If you're interested in machine learning, that is something that you can go spend a couple hours in. Coding interview practice is getting ready for interviews. So those are primarily algorithm-based exercises that an employer may ask you to solve live. Free Code Camp, Exercism, and Leak Code are my top 3 places that I go for all of that. Just make sure that if you go down one of those paths that you select HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, because if you end up in a Python or a Ruby section, you may be quite confused. And then finally, I've got project management and DevOps. Those are 2 LinkedIn learning courses. So yeah, I can help you in any of these if you got stuck. If there is a concept that you're not understanding in any of these links, you can DM me a question, DM me whether you want to go into a one-on-one or you would like to answer it all together as a class, and we will decide on that together. So again, this is like free for all week. I'm here 5:30 to 8:30. I will be in person. I will be on Zoom. You guys can ask me whatever questions you want. But if you are heads down and you just want to hit a video and start learning, feel free to drop out of the Zoom room. We will meet for the first 15-20 minutes of class to do attendance, to debrief about what you guys are learning, or work on your capstones or any of the things that I listed above. Okay, I just talked for 10 minutes straight, and you're probably sick of hearing my voice. Any questions?
So we do join in initially with the Zoom and then we do, okay.
Yep. And you should all have Slack open in the live stream channel, because the live stream channel is where I'm going to announce, like, hey, we're going to do an example backend setup with SQLize again. And some of you may go, I got my backend working already. I'm just going to keep working on my module, or I'm going to work on my capstone. But other of you guys may go, oh, no, I need help with that. I need to revisit that. So I am going to be posting updates in live stream over the next 4 days of when we're meeting in the Zoom room and what we're covering. So all of that said, this is a new week for us, right? We've never taken this approach before in previous boot camps. So the 30-second feedback form is going to be as important as ever. So that we know how we're going, right? This is not meant to be a week where we're just burning the week and, it's utter free time. It is meant to be focused on where you need the help the most, but also giving you the freedom and flexibility to choose, if you're far enough on your capstone, hey, maybe I want to go learn these concepts while I'm still in class, so that when I get stuck somewhere, I can still ask Max a question. Any questions on anything?
I heard everything you said, but what are we doing in class today? I'm sorry.
You are, this is your option of list of what you can do in class. So no new topics. You guys have sucked my brain dry. I've got nothing left to teach you.
Okay.
So you can pick from any one of those bullet points, and that's what you will be working on, not only today after break, but tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. That is all we are focusing on. Christy, go ahead.
I want to be first. I just raised my hand so I could be first.
We're gonna go on break before we do actual.
Right. I know.
But I'm a second. I'm gonna be second then, cause
Better get your hand raised in June. All right, let's go on break. We'll do a long break and be back at 7:20. Everyone who's got your hand raised, though, shoot me whatever your question is in Slack, and include if you would rather do it one-on-one or that you want to do it as a class together.
Okay.
Go and break, be back at 7:20.
I have enough time. I'm gonna go make me some tea, so I'll be right back. There's 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, Chrissy, go for it.
Okay, here is my portfolio. My portfolio, like. So here's my GitHub. And so,
All right, so go to settings on that. And then down to pages on the left. Okay, so you've got your domain in there, right? That looks good. And it's supposed to go to christyharlow.github.io. So let's go to your Google domains. Pizza gave me hiccups.
Max, can I quickly ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So if we don't have the same problem, do I necessarily have to keep watching?
No.
Okay, so I can keep working on mine.
Yep,
Okay, all right.
over here.
yep. So manage. And then to the DNS. And that.
Oh, okay, let me do it.
Let me request remote control. So sometimes GitHub pages get stuck in the weird portfolio. When did you do that?
This morning. So do I need to click import HTTPS? To see how it there, see how it says?
Oh wait, but when you go to your site, it loads.
Yeah, but it says not secure, but does that box be checked?
No. You have to follow the steps. You have to follow not these steps. You got to follow the steps that I sent you for the GitHub pages React deploy.
Oh, I didn't do that because remember we talked about it. I thought because I verified my account and I had more. I did,
Well, but you're trying to deploy this, right? Or are you trying to deploy Heroku to portfolio.christyharlow.com?
right, I tried to put the domain name in Heroku.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you don't want to be in GitHub pages. You want to be in Heroku.
Oh, you know what? I didn't go back to Heroku this morning. I did because I got sidetracked. Once I couldn't get in, I was frustrated. So I got sidetracked. So yeah, I didn't put it in.
So this is what you want to do, and then you're going to modify your SSL domain, right? So you're going to add a domain here, and you're going to say portfolio dot, and then I'm just going to borrow your. So you don't want to deploy your portfolio to GitHub pages.
I know, and that's something I did earlier. It
sure is.
Because it would work.
So now we're gonna copy this DNS target.
No, I did this last night, and that's where I was trying to put that in Google domain, but I didn't know where to put it.
So let's see what it says. DNS target. It says use CNAME or alias. So we can do that in here. We just change this instead of it pointing to GitHub, it's gonna point to, oh crap, copied the wrong thing. There we go. The double, triple clicks sometimes don't work well in screen
Oh,
share.
I tried it. Oh, but I didn't use, I had it on A, not C. That's what I was doing wrong. I had,
A records have to be IP addresses, but C names can be other domain names.
okay, that's what it was. So, yeah, I could fit it without. That was the only thing I was doing wrong with. Okay, but now.
So now it's still showing up as this because DNS records take a while to update.
So what about that thing that was not secure?
Well, this is still going to GitHub pages.
Oh.
So you have to wait for that DNS to propagate, and then eventually this should start working. I don't know what the deal is with SSL. Did Nathan go over that of how to get HTTPS?
I feel like if we could, they have to sell.
Yeah. You're good. I got it. I got you. Hobby or above tier required for ACM. So it doesn't look like you can get HTTPS. Doug, how did you get HTTPS on your front end?
On GitHub?
No, on Heroku when you deployed.
Oh, that's just what it was.
Oh, you know why? Because you're using .herokuapp.com
Yeah, I
still.
don't
It's
have
not a
the
custom domain. So you can't get HTTPS for free on your front end if you're hosting on Heroku. You gotta pay Heroku if you want HTTPS. Probably, yeah. Or you could go back to hosting it on GitHub pages. But eventually this should stop propagating. So that propagating is whenever you make a change to your DNS, it has to propagate out to all the DNS servers around the world. So whenever you make a change to your DNS, it's called propagating, and it's like literally updating everywhere. But eventually that should switch to your GitHub instead. Just make sure it's right here. Yeah, these DNS changes are active changes are published immediately, but may take some time to propagate. Just wait it out. And eventually that URL will take you to your actual deployed React version. Yep. That is if you deployed it right on Heroku as well. No, I just linked it, but if it wasn't deployed to Heroku right in the first place, was your non-Heroku domain working? When you went to like Chrissy's portfolio front end.herokuapp.com, did it work?
I think so, because it says, you know,
I stopped your screen share.
correct, but you know, like, everything says no JS except for my portfolio front end. No JS.
Okay, so then you might be okay. But you just have to wait for that to propagate, and if that still isn't working, then it's probably not a DNS issue. It's probably that it's not deployed to Heroku, right?
I did.
I'm not saying it's wrong now. I'm saying that when you wait,
I think I did all the things.
okay, then you should be okay.
Okay.
All right, Doug, do you figure out? I didn't put microphones back out. My bad.
I did not figure it out.
We are recording.
Oh, no.
all my stuff on a separate desktop. Is there a way to share that desktop?
Yeah,
Oh, do I probably have to go to that desktop and then try to share? Oh, but then I can't from here.
no, when you go into your share options, that desktop,
It's showing me the individual.
oh, just share desktop one, and then when you slide over to it, it should
Oh.
share that.
Gotcha.
Find out very quickly. Yes. Okay. What are we looking at?
Okay, so the same problem, login is, I need to move this. I got people in front of my code. So login is successful. It finds rec session user exists. So login says, okay, let's go over to the other page where it runs login status. Login status finds the session. It knows there's a cookie, but it does not recognize a user.
Okay, so the way we solved that last time was we put the redirect in the set timeout. Log in, get it.
And I'm
Let me
using credentials for both login and
let me look at your. Okay, so login is the event, and you call it on submit, and you successfully prevent default, and then we log in. We wait, and then we go to the home. And then here, do we do a login status in here?
so I'm doing the login status right now. It's happening here. Goes to launch.
Okay, but before it goes to launch, it goes to layout. Where's your login page? Okay, it's its own app, it's its own route, but it still is in layout. So what's going on in layout? Do you have any?
Nothing really.
Nothing lingering in any of these? No. No. Okay. Doug, it took us an hour to find that fix. How'd you break it?
I don't know.
Doug literally had me stumped for an hour, and the right answer was tell the computer to.
Did you submit when you got the right answer?
Probably, but that was like last week. A lot has happened since then, which I don't want to sacrifice.
Can you put it in on another branch and then look at what you have there? To see what the.
Oh, commit this to a new branch?
And I might be using this wrong.
No,
So
it's a valid idea. But the bigger concern is even if we go back to that version, I don't know what would cause this. Because basically what we ran into was that we were doing the login and then we navigated to another screen. But when we got to the other screen, there wasn't enough time between the login and the login status for the cookie to get set. The login status was
Saying there's no.
we're saying, yeah, there's no user signed in. And so the way we solved it is we said, hey, after login, wait 3 whole seconds and then go to the next page. which checks login status, and then the cookie is set, and then it moves on, right?
And it worked. I didn't mess up anything here, did I, in the,
Remember how we had that issue with, when Nate was, syncing the database or something, and they were trying to create a user, and it was happening too fast,
Yeah,
so he moved the code like to the database.
oh, right, because create user was happening
Right.
for the database.
Right. So he
Built or
moved
something
stuff
like that.
around, and then
So he moved that into the database,
itself.
db.j.
yeah,
I don't know if that's something.
not here, because the issue's on the front end,
Okay.
not saving the cookie. It's not, I mean, that is a legitimate problem that he fixed by putting it in DB, but, I'm sure there are several things that he looked at my code and went, why did he?
Does the sessions all look good? I don't think I changed anything there.
That all looks good. Do you have any, let me look in your login status. Correct that session user, find the user, update the user, and then send back everything. It isn't a simple thing like,
But I don't think it even gets there because rec.session.user isn't true. I mean, there is no rec session user.
touche.
One thing I did change on the launch, which
Oh, look, I even did a walkthrough here. I had that
Oh,
idea
okay.
before. What did you say you changed?
on the launch page, I just realized I didn't need store ID in here, so I got rid of store ID and set store ID. But I can't, which was the only place that was in here. I had store ID as a dependency for this, but that I can't see how that would be affecting this.
I think this is gonna. I don't like that.
React told me to do it.
So they all said. Try, although I think we tried this before and it wasn't actually an issue. Oh, okay, let me put that back.
I might have one of those in login as well.
I'm gonna have to
No,
come back to you, Doug, on this one. I might need you to zip me the code and I have to look at it tomorrow.
okay.
Or if you've got a Git repo, I can just pull them down from there. I don't know if they're public or private, but
I think everything's public.
then if you want to just send me the two repo, github.com/your username/the repo name.
Okay,
If you send me both of those and just make sure it's committed and up to date, I can go through there and step through. And then when I find it, I'll give you a detailed answer.
awesome. Thank you.
Because I still don't know why that set timeout was required. I know enough from experience to try set timeouts like that, but I still don't have a technical answer for that.
Right,
And
why it was necessary.
the only person that I can think of who would know the answer to that is Ryan. He's the only one that I can think of that I could hit up. Who would actually know, like, oh, the cookie doesn't get set until this, or, you know, oh, if you pass this into the fetch, it will wait for it, or something like that.
Okay,
But I will, if you send me the repo links, I will take a look.
all right, I will commit and push now.
Larry, go ahead.
That's up to, okay, so I'm lost, Max. I'm trying to get the stores to show up. I know that they're getting grabbed because I did a console log before I broke everything, and I can see the array of stores.
Okay, so, but you're trying to get them working in a drop down?
Yeah,
Okay, is there a reason you're going for div class drop down and not select with options?
because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and that was the drop down in, what do you call that place? Bootstrap, yeah.
Do you want it to be a bootstrap drop down, or do you want it to be?
I just wanted to work at this point.
Well, I can get it to work real quick. All right, so you're kind of on the right track.
Now, I don't want them to have to type in the store name if that's.
No. So store data. Can you show me what store data looks like in the front end? In the browser.
Maybe if I comment all this stuff out.
It should still be in the browser, even if it errors out.
Oh, okay.
It will be above the error.
Oh, I gotta show you the other, share the other screen.
Or if you can just tell me, is it an object or an array, or?
It's an array of objects.
It's the object with an array inside of it, and that has the stores. Okay, so switching back to your code, please. Okay, perfect. So instead of setting just store data, I'm going to set store data.stores. So now it's actually the array that's getting saved into the state. Then I'm going to comment out all of this. And I'm going to say that stores are going to show up in select. And every time we go through the stores, map over it to give me access to each individual store.
And the index.
And then I'm going to return an option. And because it's in a map, I've got to do a key on it. So I'll do store.id. And then what do I want to show up? I want the
Name.
store banner name? No, regular name.
Yeah, this name.
And then I probably also am going to want the value to be the store.id. And we're just going to go all out on this while I'm here. I'm going to say on change of the store change.
Max, with the store ID, shit. I think I need it to be the EXT ID.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay,
Not a problem.
I think.
You could get it working either way.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. You were trying to do the map. You were just doing the map in the wrong place. Because pick store, we only want to show up once. So.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. It's not good.
And now up here we say store changed is going to give you the EBT. And then in here you want to navigate. Use navigate. Navigate equals use navigate. Come on, I'm 4 feet from you, internet. Why are you lagging? Okay, navigate to, and then what's your list input URL?
I want to say listen, but
It'll probably be in, no, it'll be in app, because we're navigating on the front end.
said it would be app.js. Yeah, let's input.
List input and then ext ID. Okay, so you can get rid of this.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, go ahead.
All right.
I'm just trying to get back to store list
Okay.
or pick store. Pick store.
Store.
Okay, so we're gonna say slash, you said or slash input slash,
So list, lowercase list, uppercase input.
okay, list input. And then it's gonna go to the EBT dot target dot, I always forget this. Is it-
Value.
It's either value or selected.
Oh,
Let's try value. Okay, let's switch to your browser and see what happens.
okay.
Nothing good, but
Well, show the name of the stores.
switch your screen share.
Oh. So when it went to, it's showing the store
Okay,
value up top in the thing.
so that's doing what you want, right?
Right. And then now I have to send that store ID to the back end, and is that taking care? I don't know if I did it correctly or not. If you look at from line 57,
Rec body ext ID, that is right. But I wanna look at your list input, params ext EIT, and then is this all part of your where? Yes, I'm pretty sure that should work.
okay, so now it should only pick items that are in that store.
Yes.
All right, let's try beans, search for items. 1231, 11231, awesome, awesome sauce. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Good work. You were most of the way there and you had your map. It was just needed to do your map inside the return.
Okay. I'm at this point of the day, I'm just.
Oh, I hear you, man. I totally hear you.
Oh, man.
You work today?
Yes, I did. And I got up at like 5:36 something.
I woke up at 4:30 because I realized I had an email I had to send to a client that I didn't send on
Oh,
Friday.
wow.
So I've been up since 4:30.
Woo!
That's not normal for me. I normally
Okay.
sleep 8 hours, but that was tough. Nicole, did you get to a point where you need help?
Yeah, did you see my question?
No, was it in?
I put it in a live stream, but I basically wanted,
Oh.
because I know the next steps I need from a portfolio, I wanted to get help with for my capstone, I want to get help with my portfolio a little bit. That's fine.
So we're going to make my current portfolio and then to React without changing folders and things it's already connected to. No, you would have to redeploy it because it's in React.
Okay, so, well, can I just show you my folder because I don't know what to do next in regards to that.
So before yes, you can, but where do you want to host it? Because your portfolio is full stack. So the back end has to be, well, let me ask that. Is your portfolio full stack? Do you have an API for your portfolio?
No.
Okay, so you just have the front end. So now you've got the option of either deploying it to GitHub Pages or to Heroku.
So I think it's best to keep it on GitHub Pages because it's already connected to my domain.
I would agree with you there because GitHub Pages doesn't have this shutdown time that Heroku does too. So if someone goes to your web page, it will be available instantly if it's on GitHub Pages. So go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay. So, 1 second. I had convinced myself not to ask this question and to focus on my capstone, but 1 second.
So this might be one we've got to do a one-on-one for, because we basically need to remove your domain from the other repo and then deploy a React app. So I'm wondering, would people be interested in going through deploying a React app to GitHub Pages as a topic for tomorrow's class?
Yeah, because I've
Sure.
really been trying to do this. I've been wanting to get it out the way, at least up and moving, so I could at least style it, make it look better, and just be done with it. So I can focus on my
Okay.
capstone. I want to make
So-
something.
First thing tomorrow at the beginning of class, I will go through deploying a React app to GitHub Pages.
Okay.
Oh, so I'm gonna add my.
But
I'm
now,
gonna add React to
I'll
something.
focus on my capstone. I'll keep working on it, and I'll let you know if I need more help.
Cool. All right, Zach, you're up.
Okay, first of all, before I get banned again, I don't know why this is still showing up in GitHub. I put in a placeholder instead of the API key because I already got banned once for having my API key visible. But when I just put in placeholder, it shows up as placeholder. And when I add it to git ignore,
So
I-
here's what's going on. When you add a new file to git ignore, if the file's already been committed once, the git ignore ignores it, or
Okay.
the git ignore doesn't ignore it. So the command that you have to run to like actually nuke it out of your repo, and I have to Google it every time, git ignore already committed file, and it's some stupid rm -- cache. Yeah, so you do in here, you say git rm -- cached, and then you say the name of the file. And then now when you go to GitHub desktop, you see how it says the minus there? You're not actually deleting the file, but you're deleting it from your repo. So when you hit it to me and push, now if you go back to your VS Code, you can see it's still there, right? The file wasn't actually deleted, but when you refresh it on github.com, it's gone.
okay. Cool, thank you. And then I'm not really sure where to begin with this. I got access to the movie database. I can do like API requests, but I don't like, I'd need like the actual like URL for each individual movie, right? Or like
So
this is the key here.
there should be another call. Where did you find that 2132 Blood Diner? You must have done a call to a search endpoint, right?
Yeah, let me see.
Postman. So you're probably going to have to make 2 API calls on your project. You're going to have to do one for the search and then one to get the streaming information once you get the ID back.
Okay.
Let me see your Postman again, because once you get it all working in Postman, it will be much easier to get it working in your code. So this you use the ID, but let me just peek. That's localhost. That's the actual one.
I think that's the sample API request that they provided.
Okay, so can you go to their API docs for me?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna start. API details. I need their documentation though, not the. They have their documentation up here. Yeah. The movie DB docs. I know I spelled it wrong. Okay, so they are going to have movies. And inside the movies, so this is all movie ID. So what we actually want to do is search first. So it takes API key, the query, and then the page. So, well, I don't want to search for companies. Search for movies. Okay, and then the query URI. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to your Postman. And I think you're on all like the right track here, but before we get the details of the movie, you got to search for the movie. So I'm going to change this to this. And then I'm going to say, go back to the doc. Search, get movie, got to pass the API key, got to pass the query, and then everything else is optional. So we say in the params, we're going to do a query and we're going to say JAWS. And then we're going to take your API key.
Oh shit, it's not charging.
And also pass that here. So when we send,
On the power supply later.
that isn't what I wanted. Where's the? Ooh. Ooh. I think I have the URL wrong. Just tap to it. Okay, so here's what I'm supposed to be using. Okay, so now if you go into Pretty, this will show you not only did it find JAWS, but it will also give you the ID 578. And then you should be able to use that ID in here to get what you want. So if I change this to 578 and hit send, now I've got JAWS.
Okay.
And I'm guessing this has the streaming information that you want in it. Or if it doesn't, you would have to use, yeah, it doesn't look like it does, but you could use the other endpoint to get the streaming information. So basically what your app needs to do is it needs to search first. So if someone types in JAWS, then when they click on JAWS, it's going to make another API call to get information about what streaming services JAWS is available on.
Mhm.
So
So-
what I would do as your next step is now that you've got search working, I would use this ID to figure out what endpoint you can use to get the streaming information. So that's probably in, it's either going to be in watch providers or it's going to be in the movies itself. Movies, get details, get credits. Get watch providers. Get a list of available country by, and it takes API ID and movie ID. So this is going to be, hold on, we're gonna get you there. It's going to be the magic. Okay, so we did a search for JAWS. We got the movie ID 578, right? So now what we're going to do is take that and change it to this, but instead of doing a query, we're gonna pass in the ID, which was 578. So right here, we're gonna say 578.
Oh,
That
yeah.
parentheses, yeah.
And if you look,
Nice.
it should have, yep, Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and all of those.
Okay.
So you're gonna do 2 API calls, and you're gonna do it in 2 steps on your front end, right? The first one, they're gonna type in Jaws and they're gonna hit search and they're gonna get the 40 different movies that has Jaws in it. And then they're gonna click another button that says view watch providers or view streaming services or whatever it is. When they click on that, then you're going to take the ID from the first call based off of whatever one they clicked on, make a call to this, and then filter through this data to show the information that you want.
Okay. I'm not really sure how to incorporate that into my code though.
So I would say at this point, you should just get it working in your front end before you get it working in your back end. So you're just gonna make a fetch on the front end. So you're gonna show them an input on the front end. They're gonna type in Star Wars and hit search. When they hit search, the fetch should run and it should insert whatever words they typed in right here. And then you should map over this data to show them the search results. So that's what I would start with. So you need to do the use effect in your front end. You need to do a form with an input that's tied to state. And then you need to say when the form is submitted, do this API call.
Okay.
So if you're still stuck there, here, take me to your front end code. Do you have a form input set up yet that they can like type in what movie they're searching for?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay, so yep, you're on the right track here. You're gonna say add UC here to keep track of what search query they typed in. Add value and on change to keep track of entered input. Add on submit function. Create on submit function that makes API call to movie DB and includes the search term from the use state / value / on change. So look at any other input that we've done in React where we've added state, and that's going to help you with this step. Then you need to get your state working up here, and then you can add your on submit here, and then you can create your on submit and put the fetch inside of it.
Okay.
That should get you started, and then if you're still stuck on that tomorrow, you know, come back and I can help you through that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Larry, go ahead.
Okay.
Did anyone else have questions before I circle back to people who've already asked? Okay, then go for it, Larry. Sorry.
All right. Now I'm trying to figure out the sort part. Most of the aisles have 3 characters. The first 2 being a number, the last one being a letter. What I was,
Share your screen. I'm just gonna have to
I
hack
didn't.
this code until it
I
works.
thought I had it shared. That's screen 1 or 2. That's the right one. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna try and do the sort on the front end, right?
Oh, yeah.
And before we set list to use. Oh, did I not request remote? I did not request remote.
Oh, okay. Approve. I don't even know anymore.
Okay, so list to use is coming here. We do list items. We do that from search results. Man, this is really impressive code. Who wrote this?
Some guy named Max and me.
Okay, so search results is coming in data items, but I want to sort them. So I'm going to say items here. I'm going to say let items equal data.
Spell items wrong.
Oh, okay. Now I'm on a big lag. Here we go. Come on, internet. Items equals data dot items dot sort, and then we get A and B, and then we are going to get numbers from string. And the way we do that is totally not cheat on my other monitor and look up a Stack Overflow with 779 answers. Let a nums equal a dot, and is it as simple as aisle or is it another name?
Oh, shit, I want to say IO.
Just
Item, maybe item.io.
Nope, we're good. Aisle, but it will be. It is kind of item.aisle.
Okay.
Basically, the sort gives you access to the thing you're sorting now and the next thing that you want to sort it against.
Okay.
So that's what A and B are, is basically ISLE. And then when we get that aisle out, we do this weird looking regex. And this regex is going to extract all of the digits inside of here, here, and then we do bracket 0, and then we repeat all of that. Actually, that should be a const, but whatever. Const enums aisle, and then we return enums minus a nums, and we're gonna
You need S on B nums. Yeah.
try this. And if it doesn't work, catch whatever the heck the error is and return 0. If that sorts anything in form, I will be flabbergasted.
Let's get you to being flabbergasted. All right, let's see. Refresh. Beans. Oh, maybe I need to pick a store first, right? Oh, jeez. Come on there. Store. Beans. Search for items. They don't like it. Read 0. Cannot read properties. No. Let's see. Share.
Cannot read properties null of a aisle.
Reading 0.
Oh,
List
2.
7-1.
Okay. Taking back your code. We're gonna try. I guess if it doesn't match on any digits, it causes a problem. So let's try and just move your try up a little bit. All right, see if that works.
Alright, so let's see. Refresh. Yeah. Alright, so brought up a list, that's an 11B. Soda. Search for soda, soda is in. Out 28. I guess something that's an aisle 5. I don't know, candy. Search. Cotton candy.
Now, this is only sorting the search results.
So you said it's sorting the search results.
So you should be getting, let me just look at what you're,
Oh, yeah. Can you see my?
I can see, let me just scroll down to your code, see how it's. Oh, because we did,
It should be on the viewed sorted list. It should be sorted.
yeah. Okay, yeah, you need to do it there. So you want to sort not only the search results, you also want to sort when it gets added to the list.
Yeah, because really the search results, I don't even care about being sorted. It's when they're added to the list that
Yeah, so let me just replace this whole thing with our new sort and then see if that works.
I have a question, but it's not. Oh,
what happened.
We will get the extra stuff. Stand up.
you want me to stand up?
No, I need to stand up.
Be with
I don't care if you stand up.
one of the beans again. Like beans are 19. B.
So I just wanted to know if do you have to add React if I wanted to
Try
make
rice.
something on GitHub pages?
You have to create React app.
And
You
then,
can't just add
Rice
React.
is in 10B.
right, right, and
Soda.
and then what if I already have a domain name for it? Does that make a difference?
Nope,
Okay,
nope, you're gonna still go through the same steps, but we're gonna go through all of that tomorrow.
okay. I just want to know what to do tonight before
You can get your create React app done and make sure that your site shows up right on npm run start.
Okay, and I'm gonna have to move the HTML, those divs.
It's the app, yeah.
Okay, I made another
So
masonry thing.
Okay.
I'm thinking it's
With HTML.
sorting it and descending order. Let me add something else to the list. What was that? Beans, some more beans.
It does.
More beans, 19A, 19B. That's in the same place. And then if you sort of list. Okay, it's going in descending order. So
Okay, so
if we
literally
do
just change your,
A nums minus B nums.
Yeah.
Awesome.
does that regex make any semblance of sense to you?
Only a tiny bit. I know that the D is looking for a digit.
The
And,
plus means that it can be a repeated digit, so if it were aisle 12,
right.
it would be /B/B. So the plus is saying it can be 0 digits, 1 digit, or 2 digits, or however many digits it needs to be.
Okay.
And then the 2 regular slashes are how you say it's a regex. So like instead of quotes for a string, you use slashes for regex.
Right. I remember
And
that.
then
Right.
the bracket 0 is saying use the first part, the first numbers that you match. Ignore everything else. I just want to know what you match.
Okay.
And then the dot sort is literally saying, what do you want to come first? And whatever number is higher is the number that will come first there.
Now, for the ones that are just words, so like meat department, it will just sort it by the words. At this point, I don't.
Do not have an answer for you there.
Okay.
It would return 0, so I think it would just stay wherever it was in the list, so probably at the bottom of it.
Okay. Thank you.
That would be my guess.
Let's see, Bryce.
Doug, I see a hand raised.
Yeah, so a route question. I have, right now I have a route surrounding my other routes.
Yep.
But that's the layout route
Yep,
and has an outlet in it,
yeah,
which lets the other routes come through.
correct.
Can you,
Outlet and outlet, yeah.
and can you nest a route without an outlet?
No, it will not show up without the outlet.
Well, if I want to use my my launch code, so it doesn't need to render anything. It just,
Yeah, but it's.
the stuff inside it will not render.
Correct.
Could I, how far, how deep can you nest routes?
Infinitely,
But they all have to have outlets.
you don't have to have outlet.
Okay,
Normally, it's not a good idea to nest more than like 5 or 6 routes in. A normal app will only ever go 2 or 3 levels in. I say normal, I'm sure Facebook has 40 gazillion routes and has run into different issues, but you can have several outlets. It's not common. Normally you have a layout file that has your outlet and that's everything. But outlets are a relatively new concept in React Router. They've been around in other full stack frameworks and routing frameworks for years and years. But they're relatively new in React Router.
okay. So if I were to do the layout route and then inside of that, the launch route,
So honestly,
inside of that, all the other routes, not saying I'm going to, but the launch route would have to have an outlet as well.
correct.
Okay,
The one thing you might want to consider, and what I normally see in apps, is app.js does the use effect, and it has a set state loading. And if any of that data is not ready yet, it just shows an app loading. And then it makes your API call, gets all the data it needs, sets it into state, and sets loading to false. And then all of your routes fire and all of that stuff. But until that data has been loaded, it won't even show browser router or any of your routes. It will just show the words loading.
okay,
So that's how I've seen it done historically without needing to do outlets and outlets and an init page and all of that stuff. But there's no clean way to do it. There are cleaner ways to do it.
so in that case, if at the end of the app.js doing all of its loading stuff, it says in one condition, go to login, and another condition, go to, homepage.
Yep.
How do you handle that? Because if you can't use navigate in outside of a
You
route.
can't just return the login component from app. Because if
What do you mean?
data not logged in, then return login.
Oh, okay.
But there are also advantages to having it inside the browser router and being able to call navigate and going through that whole flow. So that's not to say that that is an alternative way of doing it. I'm not saying that is a better way of doing it.
But does that make it more difficult if I want to be able to navigate to different?
On the login screen, yeah, you would have to trigger the app to recheck the login status. And when it does, it would detect that the login status had changed and not return login and would return.
Oh, so either return login or return the routes.
Yeah.
I get it.
And that is a hard stop on the router, right? So you're saying, hey, everyone's got to sign into my app, right? When you go to our company software, there's not a single page you can access except create account. No, you can't even create account because admins have to do it. So you only get access to the login page and the forgot password page. Those are the only 2 things. And once you're signed in, now you get all the routes and all of that stuff. But that is another way of doing it, of saying I want a hard stop. I don't want anyone to be able to get to any of my routes without being logged in. So show them the login page and then only let them around that if they are logged in.
So I would like to set that up. Is that a bad idea considering that my app right now is not
completely functioning.
Yeah, that I have that login status issue. Could I make things worse by changing the architecture of the app?
Um,
Or would it be,
I'm trying to figure out what the best route forward for you is, pun not intended. Because like the flow we had for blog worked well, right? And so I wonder if there's a way to get back to basics and look at blog and figure out why you needed the init. I think the right answer is to store your login state in app. So when they log in, set the logged in user in app.js that gets passed down into the login. And then once that state is done and the user is logged in, then navigate that using a use effect somewhere else.
oh, so don't do the two different returns.
You're in this, there's several different ways of doing it.
I mean, but my problem seems to be with calling login status and it not recognizing there. So if I start moving things around, it's just gonna be the same problem in a different place, right?
Right.
There are hands up.
Yeah, let me look at your code, Doug. I'm not gonna have an answer for you tonight, though. So it's already broken. It's only going to
Okay, we're
be
starting a
more
string
broken.
from across
So
the spot.
whatever
Okay, and okay, so the first element in our array is this. Comma,
your
okay,
most
next element is that. Come across quote.
that's what you do.
Okay. Thank you. That's good advice.
Larry, go ahead.
Okay, let's see.
5 minutes to be in
All
the
right,
class, so
so
our question.
We are here in the item search, so
Yeah.
if I wanted them to be able to search by category also, would I just kind of like put a or category ID and something of what you got here?
Yeah, but SQLized ORs are a little weird.
Category ID is actually a
Oh,
well, let me see. Items, category ID is an integer. Oh, guess that won't work then. Oh, got a name, it has a name, okay. It's a string.
it is a string.
Yeah, the name is.
Good, you got lucky. So you're gonna do,
Can you see my screen?
yeah, you're good. I have to remote control it. So you're gonna do just like you did, come on, there we go. You're gonna do name, and I'm just gonna clean this up really quickly. This you've already done, so I can take that out. And the indentation here is killing me. Okay, that's better. Oh, okay. Of course, prettier fixes it all for me. Okay, so you're gonna say here, you're gonna do an op.or, and then in here, you're gonna say the name or the category, and they spell it wrong,
Right.
right?
Correct. I wonder why they spelled it that.
I bet you it's the pluralization thing. That would be my guess.
So categories, right?
Yep. They probably reverse pluralized it, and their pluralization library didn't take care of why.
Okay.
That would be my guess. Or they spelled it wrong and someone didn't catch it on QA, and now it's forever spelled wrong.
Okay.
I think that should work.
Okay. And I'll save the other one. So Nicole got some time. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, I had a question about what we had already worked on, so I don't think I want to ask it again.
You can. You got another 2 minutes, or you can save it until tomorrow's class.
No, let me waste the 2 minutes and then maybe we can work on it tomorrow.
Okay.
So in my So if you're wondering why I was just doing all that time, I put a carousel in and it wasn't working, so I just took it out. But yeah. So for my service page, I just wasn't really, I couldn't remember the steps. So I know I have to make a individual service page, but I wasn't sure. I forgot what to do next.
Okay, so you're gonna,
Or if you want to go to my Trello board and put it in there, it's one more over.
no, I'll do it right here. Add use effect.
Oh, right. Okay.
Add async function called get service. Call get service. And then in here, you need to fetch to /service/rec. Nope, it's going to be params dot service ID. Let me make sure that that's actually right. Service, nope, it's just regular ID.
So the type's supposed to be in the other one. It's working fine, so maybe we should just leave it. But no, the type is right. Never mind. Never mind.
Import use params from React router DOM. Import use save from React. Add use params. Add params equal use params. Create state to store service. And then here you're gonna JSON store in set service state. And then down here, you're going to use something like service.name. And finally, down here, you're going to do if there's not a store, then return loading. So you need to do those steps in the same order that I just did them. So you're going to want to rewatch the video to make sure that you understand those.
Okay.
Did that jog your memory of like how we did it before?
Yeah, I know exactly how it's to be done, but I think the part that I was a little bit confused on is how it was going to show up, and should it be like, because there's a card, and then should it be an on click of the card then like that, or I just wasn't.
So you don't get to this page unless you click on the card. So
Right.
when you click on this, you're going to get to the page and it's only going to show this service. It's not going to show any other service information.
Okay, and there's nothing I need to do in the back end or anything. No.
Well, you have a /service/ID. Show me
Yeah.
your back end quickly.
I do. Okay, 1 second. It's not even open. Oh, my back end. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See what?
You want the JavaScript cheat sheet? I forgot about it.
The cheat sheet? I don't think so. I think the one I got from the West Boss.
No, it's this one I care about. Oh, no, this is, oh no, this is the right one. /post ID. Where the heck is your service? Services by category. No, you need to add.
By ID or type? That's what I think.
Like that. Services. Oh, screw it. I might as well just write it while I'm here.
Thanks.
Yeah, my sorting is doing something weird too. We'll look at it tomorrow.
So just to make sure it's clarified. So the type is what? The data type then, right? It's based on the data type? I don't know. Never mind.
Category up here, yes, up the category.
Okay. So the type is category.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I won't hold you no more. Thank you. I'm gonna get to work on that.
Get that front end going. That's a good objective for before tomorrow's class.
Okay, perfect. All right, good night, everybody.
Is it a quick question?
So remember we did that button thing yesterday. You want to just explain it to me again? Because I tried to get the previous button and it wasn't working for me. So maybe if you explain it again, that will make
Let's
more
start
sense.
there at tomorrow's class because we're all tired.
Okay, that makes sense too.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Remind me though, definitely raise your hand and ask me the question. I'm happy to go through it with you again. And I think other people would benefit from seeing that. So that will be a good one.
I know it will be real quick, so I'll take that up tomorrow then.
Cool. Thanks. I'll see you.
All right.